find that there are a lot of deviations from the process. You find that, it's taking longer than you anticipate. This, gives you an opportunity to really spotlight that process and dig deeper to try and understand where the inefficiencies might be coming from. Now, a lot of the time, you find out that it's really as a result of some things that maybe weren't probably built out from the start, right? It's properly built out from the start. And then there's like a modification that somebody has to do that now elongates the process. You could actually decide, one way to fix the problem from the start, right? So where the problem is coming from, or you could automate the process and take out that inefficiency because that thing still needs to happen. So typically, when you find situations like that, I think automation really does deliver a lot of value for people and customers that think that their processes can be more efficient in general.
Once upon a time, there were millions of businesses struggling. Every day they wasted time, effort, and energy on repetitive tasks that added no value. One day, the Better Automation podcast by PROCESIO came to help them find the way. Because of this, these businesses save time, reduce costs, innovate, and make better decisions. Because of that, these businesses grow, scale, and use human creativity to change this world. Hello, my name is Aziz, and I'm your host at Better Automation Podcast by PROCESIO, where I interview the world's top experts and share their very best ideas on how to improve automation in your business, processes, and life. My guest today is Olaoluwa Daramola. Olaoluwa is a technology consultant at Ernst Young, although he is here at his personal capacity, so this podcast is not representative of anything related to Ernst Young. And he has almost 5 years of experience in intelligent automation and RPA across West Africa. Currently, he is helping some of Nigeria's biggest banks make the most of their RPA investments. Olaoluwa, how are you today?
Hi, Aziz. I'm so happy to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
It's my honor, it's my privilege. And to begin with some context, what's your story of falling in love or being fascinated with automation?
Yeah, so that story really did start out, sometime in 2018. And I did work at a non-banking financial institution where the CFO was very strategic and really wanted to know more about what was going on within one of the departments at the organization. So he did reach out to me to ask, to do a process review for some of the processes that, existed within that department. And after doing that, I realized that a lot of the work they did was heavily rule-based, monotonous, and was repeatable, right? So imagine a situation where, you receive a schedule from a client, and then you now had to, create different versions of that same piece of information for payments, for record keeping. And I realized that there was a lot of value to gain from automating that process. So I did go about, that, even though it was more traditional software development using Python, Flask, and building a web application. But then I was able to empower those teams, that team rather, to, quickly generate those things that they typically spent hours on end working on. And, I really did see firsthand the impact of automation because my co-workers were a lot more, excited to come into work. They left earlier, they were a lot happier, and that was really where it started out for me. And then on that same journey, I was very, very privileged to meet someone that works at my current employer. And we had a very great conversation, and that, really led to me realizing that, RPA was the next step in that journey for me because it allowed me, have a lot more impact at a lot more organizations. So yes, that was my story.
Thank you. And a detail that seems interesting to me is that people were leaving their work happier and more engaged and more returning to home more involved in every way. So is this correct?
Yes. People were a lot more involved. You could see, they had more time to spend on more strategic, higher value tasks. So some of the people in that department actually went on to, join other digital transformation initiatives within the organization because they have freed up a lot of time that they would have typically spent doing those manual processes.
Thank you. And to understand, because some people or might think, okay, I love process automation, creating standard operating procedures, etc. But some people have some kind of inner resistance to it because they feel that work will become mind numbing or that the work will not be creative enough to stand out in the marketplace or to have very unique experiences to the customer. What's your perspective on this? Do you feel that if everything or as much as possible in the business was automated, that will become a competitive advantage or a killer of innovation?
Yeah, so my opinion on that is really interesting. I do believe that, with a lot more work being automated, it really does free up your employees to, think outside of the box, find things that they wouldn't have traditionally done in a certain way and do it. And I think, automation or digital in your organization actually does, significantly increase the potential of a lot of your employees. So I've seen situations where people I met as process owners ended up becoming business analysts, taking on automation, figuring out what kind of tasks in their previous department could be automated as well. So it's really, really exciting, and it really does supercharge your organization with the full force of automation, because then everything from discovery to fully automating the processes is really now a journey that everybody within your organization can be a part of and could learn from and develop even more. So yeah, I think that's something every organization should explore.
I love your optimistic perspective, and I have so many questions to ask you. So I'll begin with this one. You mentioned that everybody could be on board, that it can open new doors for them. But as human beings, change is scary, even though it can be positive. So, how to get people on board before they see the benefits, because they will see them later, so that they will participate, they will be engaged, they will be excited, because a natural fear of the unknown happens in all humans, where some will think, well, what if are they copying me so that I will lose my job? Or what will I be doing if so much of my job is automated, etc. So how to alleviate fears, clarify the processes, as well as make it a pleasant experience that leads to a positive rather than a new thing that people will feel, oh my God, this is going to make my job either harder or more unpleasant.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. So, a lot of people do have that initial resistance, but typically what happens is with a lot of organizations, they tend to do something called, a proof of concept, where, they show people how, the automation can impact what they're currently doing. And usually, you kind of have that snowball effect where once you see it happen in one place, and then everybody else now says, hey, I think I want this for myself, right? So it's really, really fascinating, because then, you can now have that snowball effect across the organization, across different departments. So showing them upfront that this is what the technology can do for you, this is how to make the most of the technology, and then also making sure you have, a great communication loop between the people who are automating the work and then the people who used to do the work manually, so that we understand that it's a collaborative effort to alleviate a lot of the mundane tasks that they really didn't want to do in the first place. So I think that's really exciting.
Thank you. And can you share more about the situation and rate of adoption of automation in Nigeria? How common is it? How excited are companies and maybe the government, or you are more about involved with the banking sector about it? How much progress is going there? And just share the view and how you could compare it to other parts of the world.
Yeah, thanks for that great question, Aziz. So for Nigeria specifically, I think the automation journey. A lot of the financial institutions do derive a lot of return on investments from automating their processes, because typically large banks, insurance companies, these guys have thousands of employees doing different things that really could benefit from automation. So yes, it did really start out in that space, But then we're starting to see interest from other kinds of organizations. So organizations in telecommunications industry, manufacturing, because they're starting to see the value of it, right? So because yes, it did start out in banking, and I think that's really the same story in a lot of major geographies as well. I think the banks were really at the forefront of technology in that adoption in that space. But then other industries are coming hot behind. And the great thing is, with time going and technology advancing, people that are starting their journeys right now are getting more and better solutions than the people that did start their journeys in 2018. So it's an exciting time for everyone in this space. We're excited to bring on more people from other industries to get on with automation and see how much automation can impact their business.
Thank you. I love this. And let's say someone viewing or listening have never been involved in process auditing, in process automation. So I have two questions. One, what should be the North Star or the guide that lets you know whether a part of a process is inefficient or a waste and therefore it should be automated? How to go about creating processes that serve the outcomes you look for? And let's say someone wants to have a digital transformation or automation project. Can you describe it? What are the steps? And so that they will have a clear idea of how it goes.
Okay, fantastic. So for me, a lot of times the North Star really does start with, discovery, right? When you find that certain processes take too long to complete, so maybe you have a standard process map, but then you find that there are a lot of deviations from the process. You find that it's taking longer than you anticipate. This gives you an opportunity to really spotlight that process and dig deeper to try and understand where those inefficiencies might be coming from. Now, a lot of the time you find out that it's really as a result of some things that maybe weren't probably built out from the start, right? It's properly built out from the start, and then there's like a modification that somebody has to do that now elongates the process. You could actually decide, one way to fix the problem from the start, right? So where the problem is coming from, or you could automate the process and take out that inefficiency because that thing still needs to happen. So typically, when you find situations like that, I think automation really does deliver a lot of value for people and customers that think that their processes can be more efficient in general. And I think really, just you said about the digital transformation journey, a lot of times it does really start out as from desire, right? So typically companies have their strategic goals, whether it is to improve operational excellence, deliver higher value to their customers, or just make their employees more happy. So as an organization, really identify your goals, that strategic goals that automation can help you with, and then try and figure out which particular processes or which particular things in that domain do you want to automate. And that would really ensure that at the end of the day, when you taking on the software development lifecycle for automation, or the lifecycle for automation, you're ensuring that at the end of the day you're reaching that goal, so that everybody's satisfied. So I really think those are really the key steps to take when starting out an automation initiative that would deliver value to your organization.
Thank you so much. And since you're an expert and there is something called like the expert curse, or the knowledge curse, which is assuming that everybody knows what we're talking about, if you could explain in a simple way what is intelligent automation and what is RPA, so that anybody listening who loves automation will have a clear image of what they are.
Okay, that's great. So I'll start out with RPA, right? So the word RPA is really robotic process automation, and typically, robotic in that sense doesn't mean physical robots, but it's really about mundane, rule-based, repetitive stuff that you want to hand off to software, right? So RPA really is enabling or using software to mimic rule-based tasks on a computer. So that is really what RPA is, and RPA really does excel with things like processing of logic-based rules, moving data between systems, and pretty much retrieving data from the internet as well, structured data as well. So for intelligent automation kind of takes RPA a step further by leveraging on other technologies within the technology landscape. So OCR technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, process mining. Intelligent automation is really about enabling software robots do what they couldn't really do before because of the lack of intelligence. So if you have a process that has something that needs a subjective decision to be made, or is based on some sort of human intelligence, that is really where intelligent automation thrives, and that is really where you should look into implementing an IA over RPA.
Thank you. I love what you're talking about. And since you're also involved with the technology and the processes, where do you see the future of automation? What new emerging technologies could change the landscape and how? As well as how much in Africa do you believe automation, RPA, intelligent automation would become a main factor, or would it stay within high profitability industries like finance, banking, etc.?
Yeah, so on the next trends, I still do believe that intelligence is really, where the next step is. So process intelligence, computer vision, machine learning. A lot more cases would come up, a lot more complex use cases would come up that would leverage on those technologies to drive, automation, making your automations a little bit more intelligent. That's really, really, the next frontier. And the great thing is we're already doing that right now, and it's really, really exciting. And for African businesses, I really do believe that, everybody stands to profit from automation journeys. So even if you're just a startup getting started, finally found product market fit, and you want to scale your business, whether you're an 100-year-old bank in Africa, automation, you can still benefit from starting out an automation initiative, or whether you're telecommunications, that is also a very, very key area for automation. I do believe that Africa still has a great potential, because a lot of these companies are still not fully adopted or fully embraced digital, and that really does allow massive opportunities for us to get into automation. So it's really hot right now, and I think it's a great time to get into automation for anybody that lives on the African continent. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And for people, let's say someone looks up to you and maybe they're in Nigeria or anywhere in the world and they want to become an intelligent automation and RPA expert such as yourself. What would you recommend for them to study? How should they go about learning? Because this is a growing field where more people could find a future and a career.
So I would say start where you are. For me, starting out was somebody nudging me to do something about certain processes or find out more about certain processes. So if you already have a great job and you think you can add automation to it, just take a look at some of the processes within your organization, and that might help you get started. Now, also really understand your own strengths and your own skills. So for instance, if you're really, really good at logical thinking, but then you've never really been good at software development or writing code, there's still the low code no code aspect of automation you could explore. So playing to your strengths is really important. Identifying which of the tools allow you to do or use most of your strengths is really important, because that is where you would find space to thrive and excel within that domain you are. So I think it's a great time to get started. A lot of RPA organizations or companies do have great academy platforms where you could go and learn, and then really do kickstart your journey there. So I'll just say stay hungry. Look out for opportunities for automation, and really just get going from where you are. So there, that's it.
Thank you. And I will also speak about something else that can be very important to executives and business owners and entrepreneurs. A lot of them are overworking and almost burning out. How can automation be a beneficial thing that helps them reclaim some more time in order to restore their energy and work in an efficient way, as well as some people don't trust rules-based decision-making in that way because they think, look, life is too complicated to be simplified into such simple rules. So what can you say in order to alleviate some of their fears that actually you become dumb by having rules that are yes, no, or 1, 2, 3, while in reality, the options could be infinite and they assume they require creativity every time?
So I'll start out with executives that really do want to automate stuff to get more time back. I think it's really interesting because, a lot of executives do have personal assistants, that do one or two things for them. And really, if you do check it, a lot of those things that they do are rule-based, yes. So you could actually explore, trying out automation of one or two tasks that typically your personal assistant will do for you, just like scheduling meetings, replying to specific kinds of emails. That would give you some time back. And I think it's very interesting because I did, embark on a very small automation project where I really did want to send out, personalized messages to people who wanted to get to know me a little bit more. So I kind of set up a form that allowed them decide what they wanted to know about me. And, once they did that and submitted that form, they eventually got a personalized email telling them, the different things they wanted to know about me. And that was a very interesting way of, interacting with people that wanted to know more about me without having to spend time every day writing back, right? So that's a very interesting example and something that I'm sure executives might want to gain value from, right? And then for rule-based automation, I do believe that, yes, you might think that a lot of times intelligence is required, but then I would say that a lot more times you would find that intelligence is only really required when there's an exception, right? When it is not following the standard defined process. And, there are different ways to work around that. So when you have a situation where you need a human subjective response, you could actually do a side-by-side thing where you and the robot or the automation do work in hand. So when it's exactly not sure, it can throw it up to you. But then I do assure you that spending time to define your process and define the flow, you do find out that a lot more times processes are actually a lot more rule-based and repetitive than you would actually think.
Thank you. This is really good. I really appreciate everything you do. And therefore, do you feel like some people are saying even entrepreneurs, when they create a new company, should and are more and more moving into already preparing a plan for automation before the company and the product exists? Do you agree with that? Or do you feel that the role and the automation should be started when there is stability in the business? So when is basically the best time to begin thinking about automation and using automation in your business? Can it be even before the beginning that you have a clear plan about it? Or after you go through the chaos of entrepreneurship and innovation, then when you have something that works, you stabilize it with automation?
Yeah, so I do believe that, thinking about automation should actually be done from day one. You do find out that a lot of entrepreneurs do things at the beginning of their business that wouldn't typically scale, right? So automation does allow you scale that, but then you still do have to define the bounds within which that automation is supposed to perform, right? And the problem with things at scale is if it's broken at scale, then you do have a massive problem, right? But then I do believe that automation should be thought about from the very beginning, and then define the process and then apply the automation to scale significantly. I really do think that is where you derive the most value, because if you haven't figured out the process and then you automate it at scale, you're really creating a lot of debt. So yeah.
Thank you so much. This was my privilege, my honor, and of course, for everyone who is going through this automation journey, I highly recommend PROCESIO. PROCESIO is the modern low-code, no-code platform for advanced automation and creating an enterprise-grade backend for your software. Any viewer and listener can request access to a totally free account at procesio.app. And for those with higher business needs, you can use an exclusive and very generous discount code for 50%. It's better 50 off, one word in capital letters. More information in the description. Thank you again. This was my privilege, and keep going. You're doing fantastic things there in West Africa.
Thanks, Aziz. I really appreciate you having me on the show. Thanks for all you do for the community as well. Talk later.